And I pulled myself out of the hole. I walked out of the Los Burritos with my finger up in the air. And my cousin Willie, he goes, "Where are you going?" And I just kept going. I walked into the shop, and my dad goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I'm done." He goes, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to play guitar." And he goes, "All right." That was it. That was my career day.
Welcome to the Bad Decisions podcast, where we lead not with celebrity, but with story. I'm your host, Scott Nathan. My next guest is Tracii Guns, the founder of both Guns N' Roses and LA Guns. He was a foundational element in LA's hard rock and heavy metal landscape. LA Guns has sold more than 6 million records worldwide. Here's what Goldmine magazine had to say. As one of the preeminent hard rock guitarists of his era, Tracii Guns has set the standard for musical deliverance with a Les Paul. Welcome, Tracii.
Yeah, thank you. I love when people talk about me.
Yeah, it's everyone's favorite subject, right?
Sometimes it seems to be.
So, first of all, happy belated birthday. I saw it was your birthday.
Thanks. Yeah, big 59.
Oh, we're the same age.
Yeah, we're young.
Yeah, I've had a lot. I got to tell you, I've had a great time doing background and researching, digging into your past.
Uh-oh.
All the way back to Bancroft. All the way back to Bancroft Elementary School.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw on Facebook the other day a Bancroft group thing, so I went down that rabbit hole, and but it seems like everything's newer, so I didn't find anything good.
Oh, well, I did. I have all your yearbook stuff.
Hey, I was a cute kid, man.
You were a damn cute kid. This is a great rugby look you got going here.
There you go. Yeah, I still have that
Amazing.
shirt.
Do you really? And look at this. Good rock pose, good rock hair, slotted headstock, classical guitar.
Oh yeah. That's what we did.
That's from the
that's
guitar
what I was
ensemble.
doing at Bancroft. Mm-hmm.
And then who's this guy in the back row, your classmate?
That's Slash. That was my
yes,
buddy.
It is. Yeah, so we'll dig into that. So I like to sort of start with origin stories. Now, my first concerts were Kiss Alive 2 Tour 77 with my dad. I was 12, and Queen News of the World Tour. Off to a pretty ripping start. What were your first concerts?
Well, my first real big concert was the Jackson 5 on the Dancing Machine tour with Earth, Wind, and Fire opening. I was 6 years old. And I think me and my mom we were the only white people in the Forum. Yeah, I was just like, wow, okay. I felt really cool. I was like, all right, we fit in here, kind of a vibe. And then the next one wasn't until I was 17. Me and my cousin Willie went and saw Van Halen on the Women and Children First tour at the Forum.
Wow.
And that was the end of my life. It was like, yes, this I have to.
It was all the end. It was kind of like when I moved to LA. I was like, this is my place and these are my people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a magic place, man, and being born and raised here, growing up to the point of, becoming a professional musician was a very natural thing. There was no questioning it. I mean, just like, that you show the picture of Slash, we walked to school together every day, and that's all we talked about was Joe Perry, Jimmy Page, and Ted Nugent. Over and over. And of course, Alex Lifeson a little bit here and there, Jimi Hendrix.
Tony Iommi, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then Eddie Van Halen came out, so that's just what we were going to do, what we were going to be. I mean, there was no questioning it. I mean, I even remember I was working for my dad. I come from a long line of plumbing shops and plumbers. And when I was 17, I was working again with my cousin Willie at it was a Los Burritos down where Sunset and Hollywood connect. It's not there anymore. and we were changing out the main pipe where the toilet goes into, like the sewer outlet. And he goes down there and he digs out the hole around and pulls the toilet out. He goes, "Hey, you got to go down there and cut that pipe out." And yeah, okay. So I go down there, but we were connected to a Sears and we couldn't shut the sewage off. So somebody flushed a toilet, like right next door. And, here came these flying, donuts coming through the pipe. And I pulled myself out of the hole. I walked out of the Los Burritos with my finger up in the air. And my cousin Willie, he goes, "Where are you going?" And I just kept going. I walked into the shop and my dad goes, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I'm done." He goes, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to play guitar." And he goes, "All right." That was it. That was my career day.
You're very lucky to have supportive parents, because mine were like, you have three choices. You're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, or you're going to be a businessman, because the arts is for imbeciles. And they're not entirely wrong, like me.
No, they're not wrong.
Was not easy.
Yeah, no, I mean, we get successful off stupidity, because it's our stupidity that tells us, "Oh yeah, you're good enough, you can do this," and who cares that the odds are 1 in, whatever. You're the one. You have to be so stupid to believe that, and but it's the only thing I ever believed. It really is, and I did it.
Tracii, what was the first album or single you bought with your own money?
I think I remember, because I didn't like it. I finally, I had some albums. I had, my mom's record collection was amazing. She had like a couple Zeppelin records and Sabbath's greatest hits, and then, Hank Williams and like all that really good stuff. But I went in and I bought Motorhead, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, because of the album cover, and I had never heard anything like that in my life. Everything was treble, and everything was just like, but as the years went on, that later became one of my favorite records, one of my top 10 favorite records, but that was the first record I bought. But then after that, it was, filling out the Aerosmith, Peter Frampton, Zeppelin, all those foundational albums, especially the live records. That's what I really learned how to play guitar off of.
Yeah, my first record was an expensive one because it was a double. So I bought at Woolworths for 88 cents. I bought the 45 of Stevie Wonder's I Wish. And then I was like, I got to get this whole record. So I saved up for it, rode my bicycle, waited for opening day at the record store. So I'm, cutting the cartons open. So cut to last year, I'm at Swingers Diner on Beverly Boulevard. Okay. And I'm there with my friend, who's this beautiful, like, French Brazilian model. And we're talking, and I noticed that there's a guy right over my shoulder with cornrows on with his back to us, but I didn't think it's Stevie Wonder at Swingers. And all of a sudden, he just turns around. He goes, "Where are you from?" with that pretty accent. And she goes, "Oh, I was born in Brazil and raised in Montreal." And he goes, "What's your name?" She says, "Amelia." And he goes, "Oh, I wrote a song called that." And he stands up, feels his way over to our booth, and a cappella, full volume, sings in Portuguese, a song called Amelia. And we're tripping. And he's like, "Did you see? Look, you live in LA this long. You at some point see everyone, but I don't see Stevie Wonder around, Yeah.
It's funny that you brought that up, because I ran into him in a really strange place. Right before we got signed, I was working at a place called Orion's Health Express. And it was like the first fast food, health food place. The guy, Orion, he invented the garden burger. So a lot of celebrities came in there. But yeah, the two I remember are Tommy Chong and Stevie Wonder. They came in. I didn't, he didn't sing any songs to me. I was flipping the burgers, and I'm like, "Holy shit, Stevie Wonder."
This is crazy. Stevie said, I said, "Stevie, the first record I bought with my own money was yours." And he goes, "Oh, which one?" I said, "Songs in the Key of Life." He goes, "That's a good one." I'm like, "Yeah, kind of."
It did well.
Yeah. So can we talk about the fertility of Fairfax High School? In your era, you had Slash, Hillel Slovak, Flea, Anthony Kiedis, and then going back further, you had like Warren Zevon, Mickey Rooney. Now, was this do you think that this was just being smack dab in the middle of Hollywood, or were they great nurturers of young creative kids?
I wouldn't say Fairfax High School was great nurturers of creative kids. it was a good school. But it was more just being in Hollywood, and a lot of people went to Hollywood High School. A lot of people went to Beverly Hills High School. But, my crew, so many people got famous, after high school. I mean, I can't even remember all the people that did. But for us, we were kind of, I don't want to say outcasts, but outcasts. But we were definitely the stoner kids. You know what I mean? We were the ones with the baseball shirts and unruly hair. And I kept flipping back and forth from punk rock to metal to classic rock. I just couldn't make up my mind. I still can't make up my mind. But, we hung together, and we were a very sarcastic group of guys. And there was another guy named Philip Davidson that we actually went to junior high school with, and a guy named I think his name was Martin. God, it's been so long. And we were the 4 guitar players. And Philip got dosed at a party with acid. And that was like, I never saw him again. It was a really weird thing. And he was into acid. So it was like really weird that, he got a bad or an unexpected dose and kind of flipped him out. And then, his name's not Martin, whatever. Anyways, the other guy who was really, really good, he just kind of faded out too. So it was kind of down to me and Slash. And we kind of, we were like best friends and best rivals at the same time. It was weird. Our girlfriends were best friends, like, the whole very, incestuous little circle of people we had.
Did you drive each other to be better guitar players? Because I remember, now I've never been even remotely a pro, but when I was playing guitar, I'd learn licks out of magazines, and we'd call our friends on the phone and just see who could get better faster.
I don't know if it was so much like that. It was definitely, we stayed in our own lane. Like, it was definitely like I was into Jimmy Page, and he was definitely into Joe Perry. Like, so that was kind of our boundary. Like we'd talk about their equipment, and, I would never use that because he uses that, kind of bullshit, really,
Sure.
But the competition really wasn't spoken of, you know what I mean? It wasn't like that. And we definitely influenced each other because he was taking guitar lessons and I wasn't. So, he would come over, we'd be at Laurel Elementary School or at Bancroft, and we'd be sitting there with guitars. He will have learned something. And I'd be like, what is that? And I remember one party, 2 different parties. One party, he played Achilles' Last Stand all the way through.
Wow. And
I was like, God damn it. And then another one, like a year later, he played, I think it was I Don't Know by Ozzy. So we were right at that time. We were both real good, but he was learning other people's tunes like note for note, and it was great. It was really great. So I think that, and then so really interesting is that when I was still in Guns N' Roses, Slash did our logo for us, and he loved the band, and I think it was the first band I was in that he actually really liked. You know what I mean? Because I would be playing like at the Troubadour, for example, there's Slash right in front of me, like, fuck yeah, dude, kind of vibe. And then when I left, I remember being on the phone, with Izzy, just saying, going, man, just get Slash, and they go, yeah, we're going to get Slash, dude. I'm like, well, yeah, of course.
So you basically cast that.
Yeah, I mean, it was always exactly the right thing to do. And I always thought that he really fit their personalities as people way better than I did. Slash was far more cynical than I was, far more willing to take risks, on a daily basis, kind of stuff like that is where the guys in GNR, like Duff and Izzy, they're a little bit passive aggressive back then, kind of, yeah, like really cool. Like, we were all way too cool for school. But we were tight. Izzy lived with me for 2 years, and
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. When God, way before Guns N' Roses, and so we were all really good friends, and the danger of me hanging around is I was just going to end up hating everybody,
Right.
and the whole influence. See, I grew up here, so I watched people die from drug overdoses my whole life and do that thing. None of those guys were from here, and so they were
Indiana guys.
Yeah, Indiana guys, and Duff was from Seattle,
Right.
and so they were just kind of like, wow, this stuff's cool, and I remember Izzy was going out with this chick, Valerie, and all of a sudden he had checked out 2 books from the library about what heroin does, how, like smart books, not like, oh, being a junkie's this. It was just like, and my mom noticed it, and she like, hey, why is he, and I go, I don't know. And I knew, but I was just like, well, shit, I can't be around this.
No, that's unhealthy. So I have a little bit of background with Izzy. Right after he left GNR, I was working at a satellite office of Warner Chappell Music, the publishing company in Chicago,
Yep.
and
Oh, no
I got hair down to here, and I'm sitting on my Harley at 8:30 in the morning, and I see these guys that look like the 1969 Rolling Stones walking toward me on the sidewalk. They all got like floppy velvet hats and scarves and jackets.
Yeah.
And as they're coming into focus, I'm like, I think that's Izzy from Guns N' Roses. What is he doing in downtown Chicago first thing in the morning? And here's a picture of us from those days. This was at China Club, my club.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Izzy was a
such a
walker.
gracious. Yeah, he was really gracious too. And he came up and he was like, oh, cool, Harley. And we start talking. And he goes, you ever think about moving up to a big twin? I was like, yeah, when I have a bigger bank account, I'll move up to a big twin. And he goes, oh, I got this one that I put like 60 grand into. I'll hook you up with it. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I'll sell it to you. You're cool. I'll sell it to you for like 30. And I was like, dude, I make 300. I make $300 a week. So he goes, how about 15? I'm like, still don't have 15. He goes, 10? And I'm like, you're so awesome. And then they invited me and I hung out, for many, many, many hours of recording of that Juju Hounds record, which I still love and listen to this day. And Jimmy Ashurst, who I know is still one of my best friends.
How's he doing?
Jimmy's good. Jimmy's transitioning. He's moving to Italy.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, we were just talking. It's so funny you brought him up because I was with Brian Pereira, the Cleopatra Records guy, and we were at the new office, which is right on Doheny and Sunset. And he pointed, he goes, Jimmy Ashurst lives right down the street right there. I'm like, oh shit. But neither one of us, I haven't seen him in at least 10 years.
Oh, well, he was just a guest on my show a few episodes back.
Okay.
So yeah, he finished, he did his time with Buck Cherry and kind of had enough. Yeah. And his grandmother left him this house in Naples, Italy. And so he's going to keep his place at Doheny and rent it out and just, live in the Italian version of Margaritaville.
Nice.
And do remote sessions or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I did during the pandemic. I married a Danish woman, and I have an apartment in Aarhus, Denmark. And during the pandemic, man, I did everything remotely, and now we do everything remotely anyways because it was such an efficient way of doing things, and no distractions, nothing like that. But yeah, man, he's lucky. It's a good life to have both.
Yeah, and he's not super tech savvy, so I've been trying to get him there, like telling, that there are outlets where you can do sessions remote, especially as a bassist, It's just DI, you don't need a room, and I guess with modelers and all this thing, you get close enough now anyway, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm a guitar enthusiast. And I've looked at a lot of pictures and videos of you. I've never seen anyone with this many guitars, just going from video to video. How many are in the collection?
I don't have 100 yet. And I'm getting ready to sell like 90 of them.
Okay.
I think I've had over 1,000 guitars for sure, in and out, and like whatever. But that's ADHD, right? That's just like, every guitar I see, I fall in love with instantly. I have to have it. And then I have it for a week and I'm like, eh.
It's just another thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, but also Rick Nielsen, he's one of my guys too, from Cheap Trick. And that was one of the interesting things about him being our age when we were kids, is you would see all his guitars, in the magazines. That was a feature of Rick Nielsen, so I do have my favorite guitars, my favorite, but I'm not playing Les Pauls right now because my shoulder is just, man, I can play them, but after like the first show of a tour, I'm shot for 3 days, so I'm going to put them away this year and play other stuff. But I got a lot of guitars. I do. I got a lot of fucking guitars.
I saw a lot of like Gibson and Kramer content of you over the years. Yeah. Are you a sponsee of Gibson?
I'm officially a Gibson guy, but yeah, we put out the Kramer signature model a couple of years ago because they own Kramer, and so they needed an 80s guy to launch the thing. I never played a Kramer in my life until I was with Gibson.
I was wondering because Snake Sabo did one too, right?
Yeah, but he's always been a Kramer guy, so that makes sense. You know what I mean?
And I've known Snake a long time too.
Yeah, but I never really met a guitar I didn't like.
It's true. I feel the same way about motorcycles, breasts, golf courses. They're all great.
All good stuff.
All right. Now, I heard a story that you burned a Corvette to the ground on the corner of Lancashire and Vineland after the brakes went out. What happened there, Tracy?
Hey, Paula.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. That was the first Corvette I bought from Nikki Sixx when we were recording our first album. Or let's see. No, we were recording our second album. We were recording Cocked and Loaded. And I used to drive Paula to work every day. She worked at Leeds Le Mobile for Guy Charbonneau.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And, I'll never forget it. We were listening to NWA and the Posse, like, on 11, in the Corvette. It's summer, air conditioning cranking. I got all leather on, stiletto heels. Paula's all dolled up for work, and we're rocking, going down. It's like 7:30 in the morning. It's before 8. She had to be to work at 8. So it's like 7:30 in the morning. And some guy drives by and he's honking, and I'm like, hey, man, yeah, rock and roll, fucking blah, blah, blah. And then a little bit of smoke came through the air conditioning vent. And Paula's like, hey, foo. I'm like, what? She goes, I don't think smoke's supposed to be coming through the air conditioning. I'm like, fuck. I put the brakes on and the brakes were gone. And we were going like 65 down Lancashire, no traffic, thank God. And I just we pulled over to the curb, and then we kind of hit the curb and it stopped. And we jumped out of the car and ran to the building that was right there, whatever building it was. And the car just went. And we were just like, oh my fucking God. It was so depressing. Just, sitting there watching this thing. And then I'll never forget afterwards, like when it was in the tow yard, they brought it to my dad's plumbing shop, and everything was gone except the passenger compartment. Like it was completely untouched, but everything else burned down. So it was
the seats, the dash were whole.
They were all there, all complete. So they designed them that way, and that was good to know. But it was completely unsalvageable, and yeah, poor thing. It's the one. You can see that Corvette in like the first Motley Crüe home video. Nikki's driving it, and it's got the license plate that says 6 on it. Yeah, I burned that to the ground.
Well done. Now
it was well done.
That's funny. Now I've met most of the guys in Guns N' Roses at one time or another, but never Axl. And Axl is a pretty enigmatic guy, and I certainly heard plenty of stories from Izzy. You live together. What's it like to have Axl Rose as a roommate?
He's a great roommate. He's a very, very, the interesting thing about Axl is he really knows right from wrong. Let's just start there. Like, he's smart. He's responsible. He is not afraid to ask for help when he needs help. He's always ready to give help, a really solid person. We really had a great friendship. We were inseparable for a few years. The thing that changed, and I had known this, he had told me, that he had, what did we call it back then? Manic depression is what he called it.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Right.
I have manic depression, blah, blah, blah. I'm supposed to be taking these meds, but I'm okay. And I would have never known until the one day. And the one day was, he was off with a junior high school friend of mine. And, he had taken some ecstasy, and we didn't see him for like a week. And he showed up at this gig, and he was just like a completely different person. I was like, whoa, like, who are you? Who's this guy? And that's when the other side of that kind of kicked in. And I knew I wasn't going to, I couldn't deal with that. I loved him on the one side, like the person I knew, and we were creative together, we were funny together. But he needed to, at that time, he really wanted to take control over everything around him. And that's when we were getting really popular. Before that, he was more aware and like taking in information and, kind of sorting out what we were doing and how this is going and all that stuff. But once he knew that we were locked, that Guns N' Roses was going only one direction. Sometimes he would talk for 40 minutes out of a 60-minute set on stage, stuff like that. And I would look at Izzy, and Izzy would be very passive about it. I'd be like, fuck that, man. I'm here to play guitar, And so that's when that whole thing started, the platform, the Axl Rose platform. And I think people really connected with it, obviously, and I think they still do, the things that he has to say, the things that are interesting to people, and his very, what's the word, loud and confident opinions on things like that. People latch to them, and it's very heartfelt, and he's very sincere when he says things, even if later he kind of might backtrack a little bit and say, well, I fucking really meant it then, but humans grow and we move on, like he's very in here, and that's what makes it great. But at that point, it just scared the shit out of me. Just like this isn't a fun rock and roll band anymore. This is something else.
Yeah, and you also, and I spoke to a lot of people about it. You seem to be one of the few people who never really seemed to have a big drug or alcohol problem. That you were kind of driven about that. You were about the music.
Always about the music. Always about the good time. Because I started playing when I was 6. So it's always been about the love of music. It's always been about the love of imagery that goes with rock and roll music as well. The aesthetic. But I had already lived the whole druggy, alcoholic thing through my eyes from my family. You know what I mean? And the people around my family. And
talk about that. And I heard an old interview with you about your mom and the FBI. Can we do? If you're comfortable, man, can we talk about that?
Yeah. I don't care. Reality's reality. And there's only one truth. There's no alternative truth.
Yeah.
My mom started selling blow when I was like, from the accounts of my friends, like Izzy and this guy Marky Martinez, my mom was selling coke since I was like 15, right out of our fucking house. And I didn't know that till, I was already 19 and not living with her, like she was doing her own thing. I was doing my thing. I was doing the Guns N' Roses thing. And all of a sudden she's just real out in the open about it. Like, yeah, I'm selling coke. I'm like, you're my mom. Wow. That's weird. I don't know. I can't say no. You're my mom. This is what my mom's doing, kind of a thing. And eventually they caught up to her. They raided her place with her husband at the time, some guy named Scott that I never met. And my mom's that type of Gemini, bipolar, who has to be in control of her environment, will never apologize, will never admit she's wrong, and said she was framed. And she went out, she left, she bailed, right? After the initial raid. She wasn't there, right? When they raided her place. So
okay. She was on the lam.
She was on the lam. I think she had like $27,000, a mini pickup truck with a camper shell on it, and a cat. And she drove around for a year like that. And she would write letters to the LA Police Department saying, Dan, you'll never catch me. Like fucking the stupidest shit I had ever seen in my life.
Jesus Christ, Tracy.
So Paula is in Japan, and I'm on tour, but I'm coming home before Paula gets home from Japan. I get home, and a day later, my mom shows up in her mini truck, and she just moves in. She's like, well, this is where I'm going to be living from now on, and blah blah. Paula can't be here. I'm like, whoa,
oh, dear.
Like what the fuck is this? So I call Paula in Japan. I'm like, yo, we got to find somewhere else to stay. My mom is just completely taken over, and they already had some thing. My mom never liked anybody I ever went out with. Sure. So what happened is Paula comes back. We stay with her friend Scott Earl, who's a super sweet guy, a friend she grew up with from Seattle, and he was a musician. He had a band, the Bang Gang, in town. So when I was staying there, I actually played a show with him and stuff. It was cool. But one day I'm at my lawyer's office, and my manager calls. He goes, they got her. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, they got your mom. I'm like, oh shit, you're kidding. Are they in my house? He goes, no. They caught her at the bank. And they told me that they're not interested in you. They don't want to question you. They don't want to have anything to do with you, but she's in jail and we got to get her out. And I'm like, fuck. He goes, oh, I'm going to put up the money because I like your mom. It's $10,000, to hire an attorney and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the craziest reality check of my life, because as soon as that happened, she still denied it. She's in jail. I'm talking to her. She's been convicted. I'm down at Civil Brand talking to my mom behind glass. And she's like, no, it's all set up. It's not true, blah, 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 blah. And that was the beginning of this heavy disintegration between her and me, not to mention that, when I was a kid, she was a hippie, she took mescaline and acid and smoked weed and, whatever. Right. I mean, but that was normal. She was 18 when I was born. My dad was 18, and he turned into a full-blown alcoholic. And then once his liver finally gave out and he almost died for the third time, he just switched to pills, which was the same exact thing. And so, I mean, I really grew up with these people I love. And that was my example of the people that were protecting.
Yeah, that was the 30,000-foot view that you knew where that story ended. And Leo DiCaprio said the same thing. Like Leo DiCaprio said that the reason he's never done drugs or drank was because his mother dated some unsavory drug people and saw some really bad people on the east side of LA and just played it straight and worked out okay for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, it worked out okay for me too. But the problem is, and Leo would probably say the same thing, is since those are the people that were the examples in our safety growing up, I've always gravitated towards people like that, guy friends, girlfriends, they're a little bit broken. So I love them and like, oh man, you're cool, and broken people are way more interesting than straight-laced normal people, right? Like it never stops. It's this entertainment constantly, and their mood swings and shifts. And, I kind of have the ability to just kind of let things roll off my back until it gets to a point, and then I'm like, so that's kind of been my whole life is, letting addicts and, you know, musicians whose attitudes are way bigger than their bank accounts, you know, things like that. I love these people. You know what I mean? Because I can empathize with how much they want something they don't have. You know what I mean? So instead of being the reality check guy, like, dude, it's never going to happen. Sit down, man. You know, let's talk about your new move. Like, I'm never going to say that to somebody, you know? But so that's those, you know, I mean, we're talking about, you know, bad decisions and stuff. You know, every friend 99% of the friends I've had have been bad decisions in the end, you know, but I learned from every one of those relationships. Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. It's foundational. It gives us wisdom. You know, I always say to young people who think they know everything, I said, listen, I am not infinitely wise, but I am infinitely experienced. Anything you've done,
Right.
I've likely already overdone. So please pay attention.
Right.
That's yeah, because we've seen things.
Yeah. I will say this though, the women that I've loved, which is 4 in my life, I'm still best friends with those 4 women.
I'm friends with all my exes too.
That's the way to be, you know, because, you know, love is real. Even because the relationship ends doesn't mean that love disappears.
And the people, of which there are many, who hate their exes, you know, I feel like their picker is off. You chose people for the wrong reasons. You know, like, I would never date somebody that I didn't really want to be friends with. I would never sleep with somebody who I didn't also want to get food with.
Right. Well, I did.
Well, we all did hundreds of times. I'm sure more, but
I've only had sex twice, and I have a boy from each one of them.
Right. That's how that works. I'm sure.
That's my claim.
I've been trying deliberately to sort of avoid rock history, because I feel like you do that all the time, and you did you know, documentaries and stuff. But there's a part that I'm hazy on. So, like, Van Halen hit first, and then, if memory serves, it was about a 6-year period till Quiet Riot hit, and then they went to #1, which turned into a signing spree. What was that gap between Van Halen and Quiet Riot? And kind of walk me through the chronology of the post Quiet Riot Sunset Strip scene.
Okay, well, the interesting thing with Van Halen and Quiet Riot is that Van Halen got unexpectedly signed, right? Like that was like a Gene Simmons thing, like holding on to the values of 70s heavy rock. But Van Halen wrote really great pop songs on top of that heavy music, where Quiet Riot at that time was very Bay City Rollers, you know, with a great guitar player, basically, right? And they had a real struggle, and they couldn't do it at the time because New Wave was happening. And also in LA in particular, you know, we had the Germs and the Weirdos and Black Flag, and then there was the Orange County bands. The punk rock scene was really something. It was really powerful. And the New Wave was the pop version of the punk rock, right? So, you know, there was a big thing. And that's why I struggled through junior high school and high school, because I love Devo just as much as I love Black Sabbath. You know what I mean? I loved the B-52s as much as I love Van Halen. You know, I mean, it's just, to me, it was just all great rock music, you know, and, you know, so the focus ended up being, you know, sleazy rock metal, because that's all the elements put together, really. I mean, you know, that's punk rock, that's New York Dolls, that's Sabbath, that's Van Halen, all rolled into one. You know, that's where I landed personally. But between Van Halen becoming huge, and then fast forward all those years and Quiet Riot getting to #1, it was great. You know, Berlin, you know, walking in LA, you know.
Oh my God, amazing. Yeah.
The Tubes, MTV happened in that time. And I think that was a very deciding factor for Quiet Riot's success. You know, all of a sudden there was a heavy metal band that wrote, you know, pop songs and had the Slade song, and then you had Def Leppard and Ozzy Osbourne. That was it. That was all that was happening when MTV kind of just started. And anybody that was on MTV automatically was in the public eye. and huge. And Quiet Riot really benefited from that. And the cool thing about them is they lasted a long time. After they finally had gotten signed and had a #1 record. I played with Rudy for a year in a band, and it was fucking awesome. And I heard all the stories about, the airplane with Randy in it and the Quiet Riot stuff and how his whole, like, everybody's got a great story.
So I want to go back to the first time I saw you guys live, and I was still in school, and I normally would snobbily show up just before a headliner, but I was early this time, and you guys were opening for, I hope I have this right from memory, ACDC.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that like? Just stepping onto the big stage with the legends of all legends.
I was 20 or 21, and I just remember we had toured before we got on that tour. Like, so it was like we did clubs. Our first record was out. We did some clubs. We toured with Ted Nugent and then Cheap Trick. And then halfway through the Cheap Trick tour, we got the message. There was like a week left. And it's like, hey, okay, guys, when we're done here, we're going straight to Maine and we're starting with ACDC. And I was like, yeah, we are. Fuck yeah, we are. This is fucking awesome, right? And I remember going into the hotel lobby. We had flown in, and they met us in the lobby. It was like the restaurant. We were all waiting at the check-in to go sit down and eat. And let's see, I'm trying to remember. It was Simon Wright was the drummer, and Angus, Brian Johnson, and Cliff, and Steve Young. It wasn't Malcolm Young. Malcolm was in recovery, and they were so happy to have us, and we were so happy to be there. And they wanted to make it like, hey, come on, brothers, we're going out to fight the good fight kind of atmosphere from the first minute.
So cool.
So fucking cool. But the really exciting thing was I hadn't played an arena yet. After all the shit we'd already done in the first 4 months, 5 months, we hadn't played an arena. And we were playing Portland, Maine Civic Arena, which is a hockey arena. So it's smaller. It's only 12,000 seats, And I didn't know the difference. I didn't know that there was like mega arenas and small ones. So we're sound checking, and I'm like, here it is, man. Like, fuck me. We're doing this. And we were playing there 2 nights. But that night, after the first sound check, standing at the stairs to walk up on the stage, and the lights drop, and the crowd goes bonkers. And that, I had never felt that energy before, and I'll never forget it. I'm walking up the aluminum stairs like, like completely vibrating. And we opened with No Mercy, which is like the most high energy song ever, and I don't know what I'm playing. I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening in my life right now? And
just everyone in the band being that far away from you. A lot of people have described that, like just going, like, this guy's my bass player's a block away.
Yeah. It was just fucking not real, right? And so the next day, I got paid that night for that show, And so the next day, I went to this music store and I bought a Les Paul. I'm like, all right, I had my cream Les Paul, but I wanted a Les Paul standard. I wanted to be Jimmy Page,
Sure.
So I went and bought not my first, but I bought, a flame top, and went up there. And so the pictures from the 2 nights, like one night I'm playing an Ibanez, and a BC Rich. And then the second night, it's all Les Paul, and those are my first 2 arena gigs, and they were with ACDC. And it was just,
how incredible.
It was very validating.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
Like,
that's like, forget money, forget fame. When you're there, that's the greatest job in the world, and there is no second place.
Yeah. There's no second place, and another really huge memory before I forget it again, was when we were going to get signed and we didn't get signed because our singer was a junkie.
Okay.
No, it was we were going to the office. We were going to sign our fucking deal, and our singer at the time nodded off. But before they got to him, I was the fourth guy they asked this question to. Well, hey, you know, we're doing this. What are you hoping to get out of this? You know, which is a very serious question. You know, here's the man with the pen, you know, with the checkbook, and you know he's got the keys of the car. You know, well, you know, where are you hoping to go? You know, and I go, well, you know, I just hope that whatever we do now makes me able to do this forever, right? And the guy's like, yeah, awesome, great. And I was the leader of the band, obviously, and that was my vision. It's like, I want to do this, you know. And the next question, it was the same question to the fucking junkie guy, and he nods out, never answers a question, and we didn't get signed.
Who? So then, did you not get ultimately signed until Phil was in the band? Phil Lewis?
Yeah, we didn't get signed until Phil was in the band. So we're leaving the Polygram office, and my manager, Alan Jones, who's a Welsh guy, he was a sax player in Amen Corner, which is a British band that was kind of Pink Floyd's opening support act all the time. Super cool guy. He owned Let It Rock on Melrose. So, you know, it's kind of fashionista, cool British guy and a Welsh guy. So we're leaving, and, you know, I was 19. And he says, he goes, well, if you could have anybody sing in the world, you know, like, let's fix this, you know, who would it be? And I was just like, well, Phil Lewis from Girl. And he's like, I know Phil. I'm like, you know Phil? He goes, yeah. You know, he hangs around in Camden, you know, where my other shop is. And he looks at me, he goes, you know, he doesn't have a great range, but he's a great front man. I go, I don't care. You know, if you know him, see if he'll come over. He was over 6 days later. He gets in front of the mic at his audition, sings 2 words. I'm like, let's go have lunch. You know,
yeah, that's my dude. Yeah.
That was it. You know, so it's like, if that guy wasn't such a loser, LA Guns wouldn't have been such a winner. You know what I mean? It's like, because of that guy's failure, we got Phil. You know, and so everything happens for a reason, man. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, you got a guardian angel. Let's there's a, you know, before my time, I've only, you know, you're a lifer here, but I've only lived here just over 30 years. So there's all these venues that I used to read about that were far before my time. So I wanted to ask you, do you have any like Starwood stories or Madam Wong stories? Country Club.
Yeah.
Which I did.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. First Starwood I went to during the punk rock scene, like right before Motley Crüe happened. And I saw the Weirdos and a couple other bands. And that's when I had short spiky hair and an overcoat on. And I was probably 14 or 15, like right at that age. And but even during that time, there was still the huge picture on the outside wall of Quiet Riot 2 with Randy Rhoads in the locker room with the blue, you know, suit on, the white Les Paul. So I was always like, kept an eye on that, but I was going to see this, you know, like, okay. So the Starwood, that was like the center of, you know, I don't know if you know the story of Ed Nash, but Ed Nash was co-owner of the Starwood.
He was? Yeah, I know the story about him just from the Wonderland murders.
Right, exactly. So Ed Nash was a guy, he had a Quaalude dispenser in the back of the club, you know, like crazy
casual.
shit.
Casual.
Very, very casual. You know, I ended up working for him. I think he was my first real job, not working for my dad or my grandpa. He had a messenger service, and I was a messenger, and I didn't know this, but I was going between labels managers and lawyers delivering envelopes. I just thought they were contracts and, you know, stuff like that.
This is hilarious. This is amazing.
And every day after work, he would give all the guys a bump, you know, at the end of the day. Hey, come in here, man. You know, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool.
You were a drug mule.
I was a drug mule, you know, just like my mama.
Amazing. You know, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I'm sure. You know what I mean?
Now, is
I'm
it
sure
true?
that.
Yeah. Is it true that Gilby Clarke was the sound man at Madame Wong's?
Yeah, so I'm getting there. So okay,
Oh,
so
sorry.
Starwood, Ed Nash, Cocaine,
All right.
Quaalude,
All right. Yeah,
late
all the food
70s,
groups.
all the food groups, all the weird sex shit, crazy time. Um, and then Madame Wong's, Gilby was the sound guy there. And the first time I played Madame Wong's was with LA Guns and Hollywood Rose, and it was Poison's first show in LA. And they were playing upstairs in the big room, and Hollywood Rose and LA Guns were playing downstairs in the other room. And that was the first time I'd seen Axl sing, a sound check. I was like, holy shit, that motherfucker can sing like a motherfucker. Like, wow. And Izzy, that guy, he goes, I told you. I'm like, all right, cool. But I met Gilby that day as well. Gilby, he had been in a band called Candy, I think. But yep. I didn't really know about them at the time. But yeah, so all of us guys were in the same place at the same time at Madame Wong's West, unsigned, unknown. And Hollywood Rose and LA Guns and Poison all went on, and Gilby Clarke all went on beyond Madame Wong's West. But Madame Wong's was it was just like a cool place, man. I think a lot of the alternative bands play there, like, I don't know, what was that band called? Tex and the Horseheads, stuff kind of cooler, like way cooler than us, like cool stuff, like guys that played slide guitars and wore cowboy shirts and meant it, shit like that.
Yeah, meant it.
Meant it. And then the country club, that's where metal bands played,
Yeah.
And that was.
I went to one show there. I think it was YNT and Saxon at the country club.
Nice. A bigger room, much bigger room. And I seen everybody there. We played there. So it was the worst sounding place to play. Like, it sounded good in the room, but when you're on stage, man, wow, it was terrible. Just a weird angle, I guess, and the thing. But yeah, and the backstage area was big and comfortable, and it was like a real venue. It was a step above, all the clubs. Definitely, and like I said, we played there quite a few times. I saw Wasp there, with all the shit, a couple times. Didn't see Motley there. Rat,
Wacky Lawless. Yeah, I loved Rat.
Neither is he black or lawless.
Right. But he did have a circular saw blade cod piece, which you really can't beat. And
that first record is unbeatable. That I've been listening to Wasp so much lately. It's so good.
I know. It's one of the very few bands of that era, because I'll go to a concert of people I don't even like. That's how much I love concerts. But they're one band I never got to see.
Oh my God, I saw their first show. It was just like, that was another life. Like, I saw Motley Crue's second show, and 2 weeks later I saw Wasp's first show. So I was already, Motley Crüe had already changed my life. Then 2 weeks later I see Chris Holmes. I'm like, oh my God, that is the scariest human being I've ever seen. I must be just like him. I have to be like Chris Holmes. That's how my brain works. It's like I just absorb people I admire, and Chris Holmes.
So Chris Holmes, what did you think of his famous scene in The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, the metal years? Was that shtick or was that real?
I think it was a little shticky, but I think it was also the reality of his life, and still would be if he was allowed to have vodka. I became friends with Chris. I love Chris, and he's not any different than the rest of us. He's a big, tall, gentle giant, with a big roar, and you wouldn't want to fuck with him, but he probably wouldn't hit you. He's kind of that guy. Big heart, sweetheart, great guitar player. Had a real big alcohol problem. But he's still going. He lives over in Europe now too, man. A lot of us made the move. And he's doing good. I think he's going to be playing on this Monsters of Rock cruise we're playing on coming up.
Oh, when's March. That? In March.
I think it's March 10th. Yeah, coming up.
Speaking of concerts, I used to, look with envy at the just the massive epic festival concerts that would happen on the West Coast. So did you ever do like the US Festival, Cal Jam 2, Glen Helen, any of those big mega festivals?
Yeah, I went to the US Festival on the rock day, and unfortunately I was walking in while Motley Crüe was finishing up, because that's really who I wanted to see. It's just that it was a long line to get in, and I just did something really weird. Anyways, yeah, so I walk in, I could hear Motley Crüe playing, and by the time I actually got to the viewing area, Quiet Riot had just started. I was like, oh fuck, right on, Quiet Riot. And then saw Scorpions, Ozzy with a shaved head, Judas Priest, and then
Sick.
waited an hour and a half for Van Halen to start. And by the time they started, it went from like 85 degrees during the day to like 55, and I had a tank top on, so I made it through 10 minutes, and then everybody was leaving. It just, they waited too long. It was freezing, but that was a huge experience, getting to see. It's probably one of the only big concerts I've ever gone to like that, and it was like, okay, I don't ever want to do this again, but it was great.
What's the biggest audience you ever played to?
There's a festival in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which is in the city center, and there's like a lot of stages. I don't know how many stages, but at any given time on the main stage that we played on, there was 1 million people, kind of, so you could see everything. That was the next time I was nervous. Like from the first ACDC gig to that was the next time I was nervous. The barricade was like 40 feet away from the front of the stage. That's how big this space was. And I was just like, oh, it's on YouTube. There's a lot of footage of us at that thing. And that was crazy. But before that, it was, other than festivals, the biggest indoor concert was the Tacoma Dome in Tacoma with Def Leppard in the round. That was like 45,000 indoors. So that was wow. That was nuts.
Yeah, I saw Def Leppard at a neighborhood in my little suburban hometown. They played up the parking lot of Dog Ear Records and like handed out stickers. And when I tell people that I saw them in a record store parking lot with 30 other people, everyone's like, get out of here. But they did, because we all start somewhere.
Yeah. Def Leppard, I saw them open for Blackfoot at the Santa Monica Civic, and at the time, Def Leppard was my favorite band. They were just
same but different. I saw Whitney Houston open for Jeffrey Osborne, and she's the only support act, the first support act I ever saw get a standing ovation in my life.
Really? Yeah, she's amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Broken people are interesting.
That's for sure. So going back to just a little bit more GNR. Did were any of your riffs used on Appetite? What was your relationship to that first record?
No, I think everybody was very careful about what we were doing after I left, because there's 5 or 6 songs that I was there when we were writing the songs, but they weren't my riffs. Like, they weren't like, hey, I have this, let's work on it. Not so that none of the stuff I brought in got used. But of course,
Okay.
I mean, I worked on Think About You and Don't Cry, and a bunch of tunes, developing them,
Right.
And then the same goes for us. It's like I didn't use any riffs that I had in GNR writing the first LA Guns record. Now, there was initially we had, when we started LA Guns up again, that's all I had were the songs that I had for GNR, and that's what we worked on first. But then we developed, and then we didn't want to be like Guns N' Roses, obviously. So we adopted more of a fast punk element and kind of stayed away from classic rock for a while in LA Guns. It was all about look like the Stones, play like, Saxon or whatever, just kind of that vibe. That was, and it was the same in Guns N' Roses. When I was in Guns N' Roses, Izzy and I decided that we would be, a cross between like Motley Crüe and the Rolling Stones. You know what I mean? It's like I play a black Les Paul or I play a white Les Paul. He plays a, everything was discussions, and the same with LA Guns when I left. And because it would have been horrible if LA Guns sounded musically just like Guns N' Roses, and then we really would have been laughed at, because they definitely beat us to the punch. So we really had to make sure that we didn't step on any of those kind of signature things.
Well, so when you write songs, a lot of people that I've read about and spoken to, Paul McCartney said that he and John would never spend more than 20, 30 minutes writing a song, that if it didn't come together that quickly, they would just bin it and start anew. And like even Lady Gaga said she writes songs in 15 minutes. Do you find that do you believe in sort of spirit, like you're in the flow and it either happens or it doesn't, or do you pour over songs over time?
So when anybody says that, it's a half truth, right?
Okay.
You come up with the idea in 5 minutes. Oh, this is a great chorus. Oh, this hook, this riff works great with this chorus. Then you have to build the song, which Paul McCartney proves in the Get Back documentary. Yeah, sure, they came up with the idea in 5 minutes, but they worked on the fucking song and putting it together and recording it for 2 weeks. So it's always like that. So I'll sit here or in Denmark and I know that I have a deadline, let's say. So I play a lot of guitar. And then once I have something on guitar that's like, oh, fuck yeah, that's cool. That's something. Then I'll build around that. There are no lyrics to my music until everything's already recorded. And that's been going on since our 4th record, where it's just like, I don't want to hear your shit. Here's the arrangement. Here's what I'm kind of hearing. Do your magic. Here's mine. Do yours. So LA Guns has never been the band, and Guns N' Roses wasn't either, where we'd sit down with an acoustic. Hey, let's see, blah, 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 blah. And it's the same with Slash. We're jam band guys. We like to put all the riffs together, and then, oh, somebody's going to sing over it. Fine. Cool. But that's not our concern, right?
You pour the concrete, you lay the foundation.
Yeah, because just people at our age that really give a shit about the Beatles and Zeppelin in particular, Pink Floyd, it's like the music should stand up by itself before there's anything on top of it, and it's like Van Halen. You can listen to Van Halen without vocals. You can listen to Aerosmith without vocals. The music is unique and cool, and somebody cared about it. It's just not, very samey. Things change.
Does it make you feel? And that's why I've never really cared so much about chops. Like when I worked at that publishing company, I remember begging my bosses to sign the Smashing Pumpkins. And then I finally convinced these guys to fly out from LA and New York on a snowy, freezing February or March night. And we went to go see the Pumpkins, and they crushed to a sweat-soaked crowd at the Cabaret Metro. And then we're all at dinner afterward. And I got my chest puffed up, 23 years old, all proud. And I go, so fellas, what do you think? And this Scottish guy, I won't name to shame him, goes, they're terrible. They can't sing and they can't fucking play. And I was like, Bob Dylan wasn't a singer. Hendrix wasn't a great singer.
That's
but
right.
Billy Corgan, while he can sing, it's about vibe. I think vibe is more important. Energy is more important than chops. It's why I would rather listen to a Ramones record than a Joe Bonamassa record, personally.
Yeah, well, I mean, chops are rainbow jimmies on a cake. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to have the little tasty, crunchy things, and they're different colors, and they make things exciting. But you can't have a song that's all jimmies. You wouldn't want a cake that's all jimmies or chips, chocolate chips.
Like you
The
have all the
song,
chops in the world, but you know when not to play, and you know when it's
yeah,
meaningful, and you leave air for water to get through.
that's because the song does come first. I'm you know I'm I'm standing in Nikki Sixx's entryway one day. I was like 21, and he goes, "Hey, where are you coming from?" I go, "Oh, we were practicing." He's like, "Oh, yeah, cool." He goes, "Man, see, that's why I play bass, man. You have to practice guitar. What am I going to practice on bass? I don't. I'll never forget." Yeah. He goes, "I just write songs, man," and I'm like, "Kind of." That's what he thinks. But you need Mick Mars. You need, and if you're a rock band, you got to have an interesting guitar player, and it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be interesting. You know,
I
and
also think that a lot of people don't realize the importance of bass and how significant it is, because a lot of people that aren't music aficionados, they tell me, "Oh, I can't even hear the bass. What does it even do?" And I'm like, "Listen, from here to the floor is them, and it's the part that makes you shake your ass that you may or may not hear." And then you
that's right.
look at people like, I think Tony Iommi is one of the greatest, most innovative guitar players of all time. But I could make a case saying Geezer was just as, if not more important, because that is
Oh yeah.
groovy. It's Motown. It's psychedelic as fuck. It's incredible.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Brian
having
Wilson.
well, yeah, Brian. Yeah, he's a whole toolbox. Um, but yeah, no, bass playing is it's a weird thing because when there's a great bass player, you notice it, right?
That's true.
When
There's
they
lots of
when
people who know where one is, but they
yeah,
don't. They don't milk the song for all it's worth.
but like a great example would be like, did the Ramones need a great bass player? Not so much. It had to be there, but it's
Sex
more,
Pistols.
yes, Pistols. It's not so much a thing. But when you're writing melodic music, if the bass player's melodic and has vibe, it's a game changer. It's the difference really between punk rock and heavy rock is the bass player. Because there's like
Speaking of bass, go ahead.
okay.
No, I was going to ask. Speaking of bass, were you and Flea in school at the same time? I don't know their ages.
No, they're 2 years or 3 years older than me. Let's see. So Flea just turned 61.
Okay,
Somehow
so 2
they
years.
they exited Fairfax the year that I started, but I became friends with them. And I was almost in the Chili Peppers
Really?
twice. Yeah, when they were called "What Is This?" Right when I had started LA Guns with Nicky Beat, the drummer. Nicky and Flea were best buddies, and so Flea made a tape for me to learn all this "What Is This" music, which was Hillel. Hillel was in that band, or it could have been the guy before Hillel. Doesn't matter. And I listened to the music, and I was like, "What is this?" Like they were, and I listened to it. I was like, "What is this?" I think I was 18. I was like still trying to figure out Crazy Train. I had no time for this. And Nicky's like, "Well, Tracy doesn't want to do it." He goes, "He doesn't understand. Tracy can play anything." And he goes, "Yeah, but he doesn't want to play this." So that was weird. But then Flea and I had met with Nicky and hung out and whatever. And Flea had a Hendrix tattoo and all that shit. And he played the horn for me. That's my first get together with Flea.
Oh, we didn't touch on is sort of like your quintessential venue, the Whiskey a Go Go. Let's talk about your history. It goes back to Elmer Valentine days.
The Whiskey, I don't know how we really became the Whiskey's band because we clearly are, and I love it. And we play there every New Year's, and then we play there twice a year. Um, the only downside to that is that there are other bigger venues that want us, but they can't compete with the Whiskey. Like the Whiskey, they're like, no, 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 you're ours. Here's a ton of money and all that stuff, and we're like, okay, and we
And
love it.
Mike's great and Jake's great. It's like a classic family business.
It is, and that's the thing is I have such an amazing relationship with Jake in particular.
Jake
Uh,
Perry. I love that guy.
oh, you know, he's the guy that looks 23 forever. Like he does
It's
not age.
unbelievable, and he's a real old rock and roll historian for such a
Yeah,
seemingly young guy.
it's incredible. And so I mean, it's an honor. Number one to be kind of the whiskey band. Um, every one of my heroes played the whiskey. You know, if it's Eddie Van Halen or Randy Rose or Tony Iommi or Led Zeppelin or Alice Cooper, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And when I walk in there every time for sound check, I just think about all that shit. Like, fuck, man, it's New Year's Eve, 2024, 25, and here we are representing the whiskey, from year to year because we play there every New Year's.
I hope they
And
never remodel it. It's perfect.
it is perfect, and the smell is perfect. The smell has never changed.
And I love the height of the stage because
Yeah,
everybody can see from any place in the venue, which I love.
it is. It's a perfect nightclub, and with the dancers still doing their thing. I mean, maybe that's why we're the band because the dancers and LA Guns kind of fit together.
Right on. Well, Tracii Guns, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. This was a real joy.
Rock and roll, man.
The Bad Decisions podcast was produced by Brock Workman at Hurrdat Media. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. My book, The Big Book of Bad Decisions, is available for purchase wherever books are sold. A special thanks to today's guest, Tracii Guns, for joining me today. I'm your host, Scott Nathan. Thanks for listening.